Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Hayden with the Hill Pursuit Podcast, and today's episode 56, is a special one. It's actually our very first YouTube episode of the podcast, and we're really excited to bring it to you. Today's episode, we talk a lot about how coaches use different tricks and tools to adjust programming for recreational exercisers and athletes to avoid boredom, staleness, overtraining, and things like that. We also talk about how much and how often you should be changing intensity and varying exercises within a program, what that looks like for different people. We talk about the idea of if it isn't broke, don't fix it, not trying to reinvent the wheel, and whether or not that's applicable for different athletes. Later, we discuss an upcoming race in less than 3 weeks, and how we're preparing for that. We discuss the pros and cons of resistance training for different athletes, specifically for myself as a triathlete, what works, what doesn't work, and kind of just assessing that benefit to reward or risk to reward ratio for resistance training in different sports. We identify and acknowledge that the weight room is a means to an end for athletes, regardless of their sport. And we kind of dive into that a little bit. In addition to a brief discussion on sleep in the same capacity as a means to an end to improve sport performance. Once again, this is episode 56 of the Hill Pursuit Podcast. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoy it. Yo, what's up, Mitch? How we doing?
Good, bro. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
This is officially our first YouTube podcast.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's pretty cool that we finally we took long enough, but that we're finally taking this step. I think it's going to be pretty sweet to just start a little podcast series and some other training things. But we'll kind of dive into a little bit of everything, I guess. But first and foremost, what's going on with your training? It's been, probably been a week or so since we casted, but yeah, how's training? What's going on?
Yeah, not too much different since I last reported. I haven't squatted still or have deadlifted. Just still giving my low back, just trying to
Weren't you
strengthen.
weren't you deadlifting a little bit like
Well, I did squat and
or
I lost.
squatted a little
I'm
bit?
trying to think. Yeah, I actually did send you that. I think I got worked up to like 325. It felt good like that day. That night, man, it kind of crept in slow. So I wasn't real happy about that. Kind of frustrated me, and it's been a little frustrating. So I just been doing a lot of sled work, like a lot of sled drags, and just kind of been really working on my hip strength, like my hip strength and low back strength, and honestly like mobility. So all my low body work has been sled work, and then sticking to the vest. I'm keeping that consistent. And then I did roll last night. It's the first time I rolled in probably a month, just because we had to move places where we go. And I felt pretty good rolling. I mean, I was a little, I have to just get back into it. I forget what I ended up doing, maybe 5 minute goes. And then,
That's a pretty good amount.
yeah. And then, so I was pretty sore today. Nothing wild. So I just want to get this back figured out. It stinks just because I miss squatting. I really do.
Yeah, dude. I remember multiple times, as an adult exerciser training seriously, where you go a little too hard on your posterior chain, and it's really freaking frustrating. And
Mhm.
it can put you out for a few days to a week or more. I remember for me, um, I had a bulging disc in my lower back for quite some time, and irritated it really bad to the point where I couldn't even put my own shoes on and tie my shoelaces. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a horrible feeling. So, I know that frustration for sure. But
Yeah, I think it's more muscular. Like I didn't have any MRIs done or
yeah,
anything like that, but just like where the pain is. I think it's
yeah,
pretty safe to say it's all in the muscles, which is good. I'm not. It's just something to work around, and once I get through it, just put something else under my belt that I can say I
yeah,
worked through. So
yeah. It's just an opportunity to get creative.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
what'd you say? Tons of sled work and just other.
Tons of sled work. All my accessories have been like I pick out 3 exercises like pull ups, push ups, and then my third one will be either like a kettlebell, heavy kettlebell clean,
Nice.
or a split squat lunge or a goblet squat. I've been messing around with goblet squats too, just to see how that will work, and all that's in a vest. And then I'll pick like 2 accessories, either just to kind of just isolate something, work on some stuff I think might be weak or need mobility or whatever.
Yeah, I heard something recently, honestly unrelated to probably you or me, but I heard something recently about how coaches manipulate training programs for more like recreational exercisers.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they literally will change, the tiniest little thing, not necessarily to avoid staleness or overtraining or burnout, but almost like the psychological aspect where people are just getting bored doing the same stuff. And the smallest little tweak to a program, it might be enough to just add in a little creativity, might be enough to just keep you moving in the right direction, but kind of just disguise it so you don't know that you're doing something different and still
Yeah,
working
no,
towards the same goal.
I think that's a good little. I think it's a good little trick. I think so. Um, you know, people do get bored, and they also, and that's like kind of goes. I was actually just reading, or I was listening to something where a guy. His name is Pat McNamara. He was like I think he was a Green Beret, and now he does a lot of strength conditioning work. And he was on a podcast with um, Chris Duffin, the Kabuki warrior, if you haven't heard of him. Um, and they were, and like this is like always a thing. Like everyone says like you have to change your program constantly to keep the body guessing. And it's like one of them things like you hear people go back and forth where it was like, yeah, you got to do it. Or people are like, hey, you don't have to do that. I mean, yeah, little tweaks. Like you said, you can do the same movements, but if you're changing some different, like whether it's intensity, volume, like that. But the McNamara, he was saying he pretty much changes. Now he's on the boat where, hey, he's changing everything. Like
Really?
he's constantly keeping things guessing. I mean, it's hard to argue with the guy. He's a stud. So it's just like it's weird to hear when you have different people at high calibers saying kind of sometimes different things. I always think that's interesting.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that's a great point. I mean, don't reinvent the wheel, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. So,
Mhm.
and honestly, that's for the most part, that's probably my mindset. Um, I say for the most part, the majority of the time I do feel that way, but I also think small tweaks are really, really important. Um, Honestly, probably more for avoiding like boredom than I do for avoiding like staleness or physiological burnout. But I also, I think there's something to be said for that too. I think if I think if an athlete can, do the same thing day in and day out, or do the same workout once every 2 weeks, and they kind of just like revisit that structure,
Mhm.
I don't have a problem with that at all. I think that's really beneficial to see how, you know, 2 weeks ago I did this same workout, but today I'm going to add two more intervals of 200 meters in the pool, for example.
Yeah,
So two weeks ago it was 2,800 meters, and today it's 3,200 meters. It's the same workout, but I added two extra intervals. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I think it's important to do that. Why like reinvent the wheel and do all kinds of crazy like with swimming for sure. I definitely feel like why do all these different crazy strokes? Why do all these different crazy warm up drills? Why like manipulate paces on 25s versus 75s? Just do what you need to do. If it's an endurance swim, do some longer intervals, maybe add an extra one or two. That's if the workout works to elicit whatever you're trying to elicit.
Mhm.
I'm all for keeping it the same.
Well, yeah, like you see any good program, like if you look at any solid program, most of them are it's basic the entire time, and you're doing the same thing for an extended period of time, but it's changing intensity or volume throughout the course of it all. And that's
Oh
what's
yeah.
going. That's what the progression is. You know what I mean? It's not changing 1,000 different exercises. You know, it's
Yeah.
keeping it. You know, it's just like those small little tweaks. And I mean, I used to get caught up where I was like doing different exercises all the time, and
All the time. Yeah.
yeah, I think everyone goes through that stage though. And it's still like I got to keep myself in check, but yeah, I don't know. I think that's a cool point. I just heard it the other day on a podcast. So
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the intensity and like volume changes that come with just any program,
mhm.
I think aren't enough for recreational exercisers though. You know, like you do have to let's say we're coaches at a big box gym, right? And
Mhm.
the regular everyday person who comes in for personal training, like I feel like the everyday modulations and intensity volume might not be enough for that person. So like I can understand how you would like use something fancy to kind of distract
Yeah.
somebody from their own boredom, but you know, doing that in terms of like doing it to keep a client is different than doing it for like a performance purpose. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, like I know that people do that, but personally, I'm a big fan of if you find something that works, why not just keep doing it? Of course, you need to tweak it because the more you do something, the more efficient your body's going to get at doing it. You
Mhm.
know, so if all you do is 10 pull-ups a day, that doesn't mean out of nowhere you can do 50 pull-ups in a day. You're just going to get better and better at doing 10 pull-ups.
Yeah.
You know,
And
and if you're not adding multiple sets and different progressions or regressions or modifying the movement, you're not going to improve. Like we get that, we understand that. I'm just saying, like if you find something that does work, I'm a big proponent of keeping it, holding on to it, and small tweaks here and there to make sure that it keeps working for you.
exactly. I'm on board
But
with that one.
yeah, anyway, my training, I don't think I've been doing anything too fancy lately. I guess just a nice little segue. I just been doing most of the same old thing. I'm swimming a little bit more lately, not more frequently, but kind of back to that same point. You know, adding some intervals. My weekly volume of swimming is increased in the past couple weeks.
Mhm.
Um, dude, it's hard to believe. I have a race in less than a month, like 3 weeks.
That's crazy.
It's literally snowing right now. Not much, but it is flurrying outside where I live. I mean, what the heck is happening? So this race, the water temperature is absolutely frigid cold right now. The only opportunity to even get in the water before the race, technically legally, because it's a state park, you can't just like show up and swim anywhere. But um, the only opportunity to get in the water is 1 week before the race. So like, there's gonna be so many people just flailing around in freezing cold water. It's gonna be a disaster. But um, it is a an Olympic triathlon. I'm sure I've talked about it before. I've written about it in the blog, but um, it's the same Olympic that I did last season at this time, and it's like a two. It's under a 3 hour race. I'm pretty sure I was like 250 or 40 or I don't know. I really just used it as a prep race last year. This year I'd like to race it pretty hard. So I'm hoping that it goes pretty well. But anyway, so I'm leading up to that a little bit, and um, I'm having some longer sessions on the weekends. Like I got outside this weekend both days, which literally never happens. It was like mid 80s here both days. I got like a 2 hour run in, and I got a 3 hour ride in on both days of the weekend. Like it was just a heavenly weekend. It was so beautiful. So that was pretty sweet, and I'm enjoying that longer stuff. Um, I don't know if anything super. I'm still lifting. At some point, I'm gonna pull that back when I get closer to my bigger races, not the Olympic, but a few weeks after that, I'll probably drop that volume. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good.
How do you
Um,
think your off season went? I don't know if we ever like talked about it. Like, how do you think? Are you feeling pretty good? Like, do you think your strength went up?
yeah, I definitely think I got stronger. Um, I think my off season was a lot more disciplined, I think is a good word.
Mhm.
Um, after last off season, so geez, last off season was technically early 21. So right after COVID, not after, but the first off season after the start of COVID, I guess. And that off season, I mean, it was just like a full time off season,
Yeah.
because we got, COVID in 2020, and then no races. And then off season was early 21. Right now is early 22. So yeah, off season was early 21, and it really just felt like an extended off season all through 2020 up until race season of last year.
Mhm.
So honestly, it's kind of tough to answer that question. I don't really know. I don't really know how to describe how all that went, because it was my first real go round with actual intense triathlon training. So
Mhm.
um, after the Ironman, so I can speak to this off season. After the Ironman, um, I felt like I maintained like a lot of good discipline with training, and I maintained a lot of like I swam in intelligently. I swam once or twice a week. So in season, I'm 3 times a week, and that frequency I think is really important for me. I'm not, you know, I'm an adult onset swimmer, so like I basically had to teach myself how to swim a year and a half ago, and me swimming 3 times per week is really important. So
Mhm.
I hit that very consistently throughout the season, but I intelligently swam a little less, and I dropped my run bike volume, but I maintained my run bike fitness, and or as close as I could, and I lifted a good bit, and I feel like it's paying off already.
Mhm.
Like on my longer sessions, I'm not like my stabilizing muscles in my posterior chain on long rides and on long runs. Like I feel really good. I feel really good. So I think just that small tweak in terms of emphasizing emphasizing resistance training a little bit more in the off season was important, and I think it was beneficial. Now, I say that from a triathlete perspective, because lots of endurance athletes struggle to understand the importance of resistance training.
Mhm.
So we've always understood it, and we know its benefits for anaerobic athletes and aerobic athletes. But um, I say that I did it more in the off season, and it's kind of like a relative more, because lots of triathletes probably don't even do it at all. I know a lot that don't even touch weights, and if they do, they're following something that they from Muscle Magazine, or I don't know,
Yeah.
something silly on YouTube. They have no clue what they're doing. But anyway, yeah, it was really beneficial for me, and I'm really starting to see that pay off. I'm looking forward to some bigger stuff, and I'm looking forward to getting a lot faster. I feel like I get faster when the weather breaks. Like these past couple days, I felt like really, really good. And now it's getting cold again. So it's just kind of like a downer. But anyways, that's a long way of saying, yeah, I think my training's going well.
Yeah, no, I think just a couple things. I think one, I think it will be cool to see like this season for you, where you need to keep as much of the triathlete or triathlon events in your off-season training. Like, hey, can I maybe focus a little more in the weight room and dial back on that, or do I need to add a little bit more? I think it'll be cool. Like, you probably be able to gauge that a little bit more. And then I mean, I know I'm on a sled kick right now, but I've just been going like hardcore research on like sled work.
Nice.
I think it would be cool for you to like if you want to train like resistance train and recovery work during the season. I think it'd be cool to see if you could like get access to some sort of sled and do some pulls. I think it's a great recovery, and you're not beating yourself up. Like, it's all concentric movement. You know, there's literally no eccentric movement in there, like tearing your muscles down. You know, it's pretty much just getting blood there. So I think it'd be cool to see. I don't know if you have access to one.
Yeah.
So especially like the week or so after your race.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. I
Mm-hmm.
do think I'm going to emphasize it even more within this next off season. But
Yeah.
my next off season, it's hard for me to plan that far ahead just
Yeah.
because
No.
of,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I mean, I do plan to emphasize it even more, and I'm doing my best even now. I would consider, I've been in season for a little bit at this point. I would consider what I'm doing now to be a lot more than other triathletes as well. Like, I'm in the weight room at least 3 times a week,
Yeah.
and I have very specific movements that I'm doing, and you know it's structured. I'm not just going in there messing around. So I'm doing a lot more than I think others are. Now, there's an argument to be made there. If you have an hour of free training time as a triathlete, you already have 3 disciplines. You know, do you um do you take that hour and put it into another run, or 40 minutes on the bike? Or if you have that hour, do you go resistance train? And it's kind of like it's a battle, because I know what I like doing, and I like resistance training in that free hour if I have it on top of what I've already planned for the week. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And if I
Yeah.
have that hour, I'm gonna go resistance train. I know that in theory, if I put it into running and I'm not overdoing running, then yeah, sure, it might prove beneficial. But I also know the benefit of resistance training, and I'm hoping that that's equally as beneficial.
Yeah. We talked about this before, man. It's okay. Your sport is triathlon, right? You have to be run, swim, and bike. Okay. No different than a football player, no different than a wrestler or a
Yeah,
soccer player, right?
right,
So the weight room's a means to an end, but
right.
you still do it to benefit that sport, right?
Absolutely.
Like maybe if you get that hour of free training, but your run, maybe you didn't get your run in that week, or you maybe had to cut it short. Okay, that's what you're going to use that hour for, because that's your sport. But if you got all that covered and you have this allotted amount of time left, use it to resistance train or use it for mobility, something to increase that, because it's like, any sport is full, like it's a circle, right? And you do too much of the same thing and you neglect something else, overuse is going to happen, or there's going to be an injury, or just being stale, and I think that's huge. So I think you're on the right track. I never ran a triathlon. I did other sport, and if I was a wrestler and I never touched the weight room and just wrestled all the time, you know, it just sounds not intelligent.
I know.
You know,
I completely agree with you too. And unfortunately, not a lot of people in the endurance world um, share that opinion.
mhm.
But um, there are some,
Oh, sure,
and
absolutely.
it's nice to see some people have a lot of success doing that. I know a
Yeah.
few people off the top of my head, but it's nice to see people who do have success in the endurance world with resistance training. Um, and on the academic side, I guess it'd be cool to I've done it a little bit already, but it'd be cool to develop some research that actually shows the benefit of resistance training for, say, ultra athletes, or
Yeah.
the extreme end of an endurance athlete, because there's not a lot of research on it, because not a lot of those people resistance train, and I dabbled in it once and ended up getting a qualitative study published on resistance training and ultra runners, but it was qualitative, and we didn't there was it was just survey data, and whether or not they used coaches and strength coaches and frequency and volume and stuff. So it wasn't great, but it did kind of show a little bit of the world of ultra athletes and how little resistance training they actually do.
Well, and I'm sure like once you get to that level, I'm sure like when you train, like when you have to, I bet the monitoring of the resistance training has to be very critical. Like, hey, like what am I doing? What's my intensity, my volume, how far out? I'm sure that's, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure it takes a lot of messing around with, so you feel what you can do to get away with and still perform. Because like at the end of the day, you don't want your resistance training ever taking out of your training for your sport. So I
Yeah.
think that's the moral of the story.
Yeah. So I'm bringing this up just because you're the statement you made, the weight room is a means to an end for every sport. We both know that. It's a really awesome way of putting it. But speaking of means to an end, this came up in just passing conversation with me today. I was talking to a friend, but um sleep is a means to an end also, right?
Mhm.
Like what does that look like? What does that look like for you normally? I know it's a little different for you. What should sleep ideally look like for us? I think it's a hard question. It's a hard question to answer. It's a hard question to even ask. Like, what should it look like for you versus me versus this type of athlete, or someone else? But sleep is super important, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
hugely
yeah.
important.
So I'm not a good person to talk to about
I
this,
know.
just with where my situation. But with that being said, I think everyone's different with sleep, though, dude. I know you hear, "Oh, get the 8 hours, get the 8 hours," but dude, I'm sure there's people out there that can function on less, and I'm sure there's people out there that need more. You know what I mean? Or I don't mean, I hate the word just function, because you can function on function and actually reaping the benefits of sleep are probably different, because obviously your body does a lot when you sleep. You repair, and it does a whole thing. So it would be cool to see, like, hey, if that person like that can sleep 5 hours and wake up and feel phenomenal, I wonder if their body is getting the same work done or recovering the same amount, like physiologically, not just like, hey, I mentally feel good and I'm cognitively able to do that. Like, I wonder if the body's still getting the same amount done that it would in like 10 hours. You see what I'm saying? I think that's just a genetic thing too, possibly. Hey, like they can recover that much quicker with less sleep.
Dude, I think age is really big with sleep also. Like,
Yeah,
you
good
remember
point.
in high school messing around with friends late at night, and then, before you know it, it's time to get up and go to school the next day. I mean,
No, dude, I slept more in high school than I sleep now, man.
well, I believe that, but
No, okay, you know
you
the
know what I
most.
mean. You know what I mean, though. You just got some stupid and bad habits in high school, and you're up playing a video game or talking to somebody or whatever.
Yeah, it's too that. Yeah, that, and I think quality too, man. It's
Hmm.
um, like, hey, like when you're going to bed, and I think everyone can fall victim of this, like shutting the TV off, getting somewhere where it's like dark, and that's bedtime. I think that's a big one, and yeah, for sometimes I don't always get a lot of sleep at a time, so I'll just crash just to at least get something. And I think that's better than nothing than trying to just grind it out. Sometimes I'll still get myself, like, say I only got like 3 hours of sleep at one point. and I got to be up for another 12 hours, but I can like sneak in like an hour nap. I'll try to instead of just like gutting it out.
Yeah.
Um, but I agree, dude. Age, I think that's definitely a factor. And I just think your productivity during the day. I think I heard Jocko talk about this one time, and this is like a huge point. Like people will complain, like, "Hey, I can't sleep. Go to bed and I'm not tired." It's like, but what have you done during the day? Like, are you being active? Hey, I haven't done anything physical today, so I go to lay down and I'm not tired. Okay,
Right.
maybe put an hour of exercise in your day. Like, make your body want the rest. Or if you're at work, like, what are you doing at work? Are you just kind of messing around? Are you there engaged and working? Because, dude, there's days by the time I'm ready to go to bed, like I'm falling asleep before my head even hits the pillow, because you put that work in during the day where, hey, your body wants to go to bed, it wants to rest. The first time I ever heard that was a Jocko podcast, and I was like, man, that kind of does hold some value.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
It's kind of like it's a little bit of a fine line there, but for the most part, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, exercise is also going to give you energy. So maybe depending on, now we're getting into all kinds of variables, but depending on the time of day that you're adding in that exercise, it might be like taking or having 3 cups of coffee at 8 p.m. If that's the only time you can fit in exercise, you might be up for a while because you just exercised and then you still can't go to sleep. But I get what he's saying, that like, look, put your body through the ringer, even if it's not physically, like you're at work and you're actively engaged in what you're doing,
Mhm.
then yeah, I mean, your mind is going to need a break, your body is going to need a break, and that can be helpful in falling asleep. Absolutely.
Yeah, like, have you ever had one of those days like where it's just like a lazy day, like you kind of just chilled around the house and like, but then you're up like forever. It's like, because
Yeah,
I've done nothing today to
because you're
like,
not tired at all.
exactly, man. And that's like the worst. But like, there's days, man, like even if it's not like,
Anyway, tiny little technical difficulty, but the only other thing I was going to bring up about sleep is, dude, what about the people who, like the super high achieving people that like sleep for 2 hours a night and that's all they get? Like, how crazy is that? And like, not that they like die in their 40s or anything. They live long, successful lives, and they still say that they only sleep between like 2 and 4 hours a night for years, like every night. Like, I don't even know how those people do it. Like very successful people. Like, I'm thinking off the top of my head, but the show Shark Tank. Those
yes,
pe those people have like all come out and admitted that they don't sleep more than like 3 or 4 hours a night.
I believe it.
Like, wild.
Yeah, I often wonder too. Like, yeah, obviously there's the successful people, but you know, to have success in like a physical endeavor, though, compared to just like
Yeah,
grinding in
yeah,
and out, grind. I'm not saying that's easy, no doubt, but you're not repairing physical breakdown. You know
yeah.
what I mean? I think if you're an athlete, you definitely have to take that. But no, dude, I agree, man. Like, I think if that's what you got to do, absolutely. There's going to be a stage in your life. I mean, dude, you probably never slept when you were in your PhD. I
Yeah,
mean,
it was definitely a lot more scarce for sure.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But I think you can definitely not. I mean, okay, we're not doctors here recommending people not sleep, but
Yeah.
I think you can definitely get away with it sometimes. But
Mhm.
I think we nailed it, though. I think a lot of it's individual based, though. I really do. I think sleep is, person to person. Like, I know someone, man, like they can go along, like they can stretch it and just sleep like 4 hours. That's all they need. And they're up. And, I don't personally need a bunch of sleep. Um, but I know some others, like, hey, like they need that 8 to 12 hours, or else they're not feeling it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. Anyways, yeah, nice little chat about means to an end for different sports, different goals. We both have different ones. We both train for different things at different times of the year. We see these daily undulations, these weekly, monthly undulations in our training. But when it comes down to it, we can manipulate a lot of different variables to directly impact, exactly what we're training for, how we're training, how we're recovering, and the weight room being super important for every single sport. We value that. We understand that. And then just kind of off the top of my head there, sleep as well, like two really important variables for impacting sport performance, physical performance, everyday performance. So yeah, really good one. You got anything else?
No, that's it. I think it was good. And yeah, like we said, hey, mess with your sleep, see if you a little bit more will pay off. And maybe if you don't need as much, maybe you can get some more done.
Yeah, lots of individual variability there that a lot of people probably have yet to really tap into that little self experiment. But anyways, yeah, thanks for listening. This was episode 56, and we will see you next time.